Now, going on to the culture part of the podcast, you have Starbucks Union tweets support for Hamas attacking Israel. Some people are not too surprised. And yet another reason to be worried about unions taking over companies and making companies look bad, because again, now this is sparking a boycott. And again, this isn't Starbucks, the company. This is the union, the unionized workers of the company. So again, it's making Starbucks look terrible. And yet, bless his heart, I guess he's no longer the company, unfortunately, or no longer the chairman and leading company, Mr. Charles Schultz. What is his last name? It's going to drive me crazy. I just read his book last month. The Starbucks Way. Howard Schultz. Brain fart there. I was going to say, let me know in the comments if you want like an office tour or something. I just referenced a bookshelf that you can't see out of frame. But nevertheless, since he's left the company, I would venture to say things are probably going to get a little bit worse. Now, the union founder said that it must be free to express its solidarity with Palestine. Now, again, the big spark of the flame, so to say, or igniting the flame, is the fact that they're talking about Hamas, which is, I don't know in terms of where people fall on in terms of your beliefs, but most of the research I've seen, at least, is that they're a pretty pro-terrorism group, that they're founded with the intent to get rid of Israel. So I don't see a lot of traditional support for Hamas, but this union says they're great, apparently. Now, this is thanks to an article by ynetnews.com, and of course, they do reference the direct tweets from them as well. Now, one of these tweets comes from, and of course, in terms of true union marketing, which, again, while I don't agree with it, their marketing in terms of their logo is on point. Now, they have the cliche fist, and the fist with the Starbucks union has a Starbucks cup in the middle. So, I was going to say, for that logo, they get a B+ for marketing because they're getting their point across of what their beliefs are. Now, this tweet is Starbucks Workers United, and they did a retweet. So they say solidarity with Palestine, and they retweeted a bulldozer operated by Gaza resistance tearing through Israel occupation fence erected on the border. And they, again, this is a quote, literally breaking apart the Israel created mass prison at the Strip. And they also tweeted support, and this is, I'm going to go to the very top and rewind this for a New York minute here. So specifically, it looks like Starbucks Workers United local labor unions in Chicago, Boston, Iowa also published posts on their official social media pages accusing Israel of provoking Hamas attacks, apartheid, and the oppression of Palestinian people, unquote. And this is from the union. They say, quote, "We stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people and condemn the IDF for the senseless and brutal bombing of innocent Palestinians, murder and injury, as well as for the creation and financing of Hamas in the 1980s to discourage Palestine solidarity," unquote. And that was from one of the unions in Boston. They also noted that one of the nation's union's founders, Jazz Brizak, shared the tweets and other posts condemning Israel. Quote, "This should not have been considered controversial. Human rights are not up to debate. Unions must be free to speak up on this or our solidarity isn't real," unquote. Which, yes, thanks to free speech, we know exactly where you stand on this issue, which, again, is not a good thing about, I always proclaim that everyone should have the ability for free speech, because if you don't agree with someone, you probably want to know where they stand on the issues, or actually, how do you know if you don't agree unless they say something? Well, these days you have certain signals. But nevertheless, it looks like BLM Chicago also did a tweet saying, "I stand with Palestine," and they had the paraglider, or the parachuteman, with the Palestine flag on it, which, well, I'd say B- for marketing. I'd say C-, D, F- for marketing. Their flag is not very inspirational, but nevertheless, it's one of those things where that was where they had soldiers, or terrorists actually, would go down by parachute and went to a concert and gunned innocent people down. So BLM Chicago is proclaiming that's good. They literally tweeted, "That is all that it is." Then they have that picture that says, "I stand," and then they have the parachuter, which is reason 1,998,558,365 to never acquiesce and give up your right to defend yourself and your family, aka the Second Amendment. There's a lot of parallels being drawn with the old film by the name of Red Dawn. People always wonder, oh, when would the bad guy ever parachute from the sky? Well, it happened yet again. Now, going down into the article, it'll be interesting to see. So Starbucks, interesting, let's see here. Now you already have a lot of senators and a lot of folks actually pushing back on it, because again, in terms of moves on the political chessboard, it's a pretty... I'm surprised more politicians aren't jumping on this bandwagon. It's a very popular thing to say, because I believe it is also the morally right thing to say in terms of, I mean, it's disgusting when one group of people are killing innocent civilians, which is what Hamas is doing in many of these instances. We have evidence of it. Now, it looks like Senator Rick Scott specifically calling out Starbucks saying, quote, "This is disgusting. Every American should condemn the atrocities that Iran-backed Hamas terrorists committed in Israel. Boycott Starbucks until its leadership strongly denounces and takes action against this horrific support of terrorism," unquote. This is something that Rick Scott actually put on the Twitter. Now, interestingly enough, this is also the detriment of unions. You can't control them. Like, in terms of Starbucks, the company, and again, they're very left on many issues, politically speaking, but again, this is the awkward thing where they're representing Starbucks in the worst possible light, but they're the union, they're not the company, which is, again, a precarious, awkward situation. And also another great example of use cases of, oh dear God, they unionized, what's happening next? And oh dear God. Now, it looks like someone at Starbucks claimed something. Now, they said this is, let's see here. Starbucks distances itself from the posts in a statement saying, quote, "Starbucks strongly disagrees with statements on acts of terror made by Workers United. We unequivocally condemn acts of terrorism, hate, and violence, and disagree with the statements and views expressed by Workers United and its members. Workers United's words and actions belong to them and them alone," unquote. Now, the issue is, though, they're working for your company. They're the union of Starbucks. But again, so people are boycotting Starbucks, which, if you're against unions, that's also another good reason to boycott them as well. I'd also argue in terms of kind of the... I still blows my mind how weak many Americans have become mentally, well, and physically. It was trending on TikTok a couple months back where there's a Starbucks worker crying. Allegedly a man. Although, no, upon retrospect, I would call him a boy. But this boy was crying at Starbucks because the orders were complicated and he had to work 8 hours. I was going to say, I should bring some pins so you could hear a pin drop of how pathetic that is. I mean, my grandpa worked in an aluminum foundry in Michigan for years, 7 days a week, without complaining once. And now we have these boys complaining, oh, the orders are too complex, they don't stop. The only reason your job exists, the only reason Starbucks exists at all and can make a profit is because of these ridiculously complex orders with more ingredients than you can possibly count or pronounce. That's how they're so profitable. It's very complex, customized drinks, and consumers are willing to pay for it, and they put a premium on that product. And yet now they're crying because of that, and life is hard, they claim. Ridiculous. Now, interestingly enough, there's a comment section on this article, thankfully. So let's go to the comment section and see what people are saying. Someone by the name of Roy Finglum saying, quote, "Boycott them unless workers who posted this are dismissed," unquote. He got 2 likes. Now, it looks like someone responded to him by the name of Tom Clean saying, quote, "The morons who run the union get paid not to work," unquote. Which, yes, that's true. Like a divorce attorney, they're not on the front lines. It's a different role. And their role is mainly to cause conflict between the two parties because that's how they can justify their job, I would argue. And they get paid copious amounts of money to do that. Someone by the name of Lev Slavondik said, quote, "No more Starbucks coffee for me," unquote. Someone by the name of Sheila Ramon said, quote, "Another iconic American brand is about to bite the dust. Their drinks were overpriced anyways. I will always go to 7-Eleven for my morning jolt," unquote. She got 3 likes on the social media. Well, I guess this isn't really social media. It's in the news article page at ynetnews.com. And it is one of those very, very interesting things where it should be very easy to boycott Starbucks for a myriad of reasons, in addition to your pocketbook, because there are a lot of alternatives. Now, in terms of my anecdotal experience, where I appreciate Starbucks in terms of their conveniences, it's kind of just a mobile office. So if I'm on the road for my IT company, I'm between meetings, for the price of a coffee, I can basically get a mobile office. I could use my personal hotspot, or if you don't care about security, use their Wi-Fi. I don't recommend that. But nevertheless, you got a nice table you can use, and you can actually just get a couple things done. Now, it'll be interesting to see. Let me know in the comments, do you think there'll be a mass boycott of Starbucks? Again, it's very easy. It's a very expensive coffee. It would be better for your pocketbook these days, and everyone should be tightening their belt with the economic uncertainty. And there's a lot of other places you can go as well. Also, if you're like me and you look for the best ROI, you could just go to the big box mart, buy a big bag of the cheapest whole bean coffee, grind it at home, and just make it yourself. Which, it's hard to beat that ROI. So it'll be interesting to see. Do you think there'll be a mass boycott against Starbucks? Are people kind of fed up with boycotts? Has the culture gotten to the point where people are just overwhelmed? There's too many things to boycott? Or perhaps could Starbucks be the next Bud Light? It'll be interesting to see, but as you know me, I always say, time shall tell. Thank you everyone again for taking the time to tune in. We're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of October, so if you could click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, all the comments are greatly appreciated as well. We try to make the show better and better together. Don't forget to take the time to like the video because it might help with the algorithm. It seems to change on a daily basis of how the magical wizards at YouTube recommend videos or not. But what helps the channel even more out is if you just take the time, and I do appreciate it, take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.